Suppose for a moment that we live in a world where superheroes exist, and imagine one flying throughout the city, checking for evil when they come across someone harming an innocent person. What could we expect from such a being? One who possesses the ability to stop the evil, has the motivation, and aims to stop the evil wherever necessary, and knows that the evil will occur? We'd obviously expect them to stop the event from happening, but what if they didn't? What could we say then about such a being? What if in response, they just sit there, let it occur, and claim that the free will of the evildoer was a greater good than preventing the harm? Or worse, that the evil action itself leads to some greater good down the line. Could we call that being good? Would there even be any coherent sense of evil from their perspective? I mean, imagine if I came up to you, punched you, stole your wallet, and when confronted, I simply said, it was for the greater good. If it turns out that there is no evil, all things considered, then what exactly even is sin? Something that should occur, after all? If that's the case, then original sin should have occurred. It's not something that shouldn't have occurred. And if that follows, then Jesus' atonement seems utterly meaningless because he didn't die for anything that shouldn't have occurred in the first place. So I guess my point is this. If we can't expect such a being to stop evil because of free will or some greater good excuse, then the entire notion of goodness and the theology that follows from it can virtually justify anything. And if you disagree with me, call the show because it's starting now. Welcome, everybody. Today is June 22nd, 2025. I am your host, Jmike, and with me is the Sultan of Skeptic. That is pretty good on the top of my head. I was setting myself up there for just what are some S words and skeptic and stuff. I don't know. So
No. I'm the guy that took 30 years to figure out donkeys can't speak Hebrew. I'm not that skeptical. I came late to the party, but I'm here, and I'm here on the show, and it's nice to be here. Thanks for letting me play along.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited. I think like a lot of people in the audience can just understand why completely. I did get to meet you in Atlanta briefly. I'm not sure you remember because you get to meet a whole bunch of people. But
Atlanta was a whirlwind. I was doing a speech in front of the Arizona State Capitol on state church separation. You and I, it was secular Arizona that invited me
Arizona.
out.
Yeah, Arizona.
And I
met you in Atlanta.
I thought you said in
no,
Phoenix.
I might have said Arizona because my friend Aaron's there, and I know you met him there, and so my mind might have said that.
Whole other party. Okay, well, I was in Arizona, and I did a speech about state church separation, the secular United States, and why that's what the founding fathers intended. And I actually have that 20-minute outdoor presentation from in front of the Arizona State Capitol on my YouTube page if people want to go. It's called Jefferson's Jesus, and it's a nice encapsulation of why we are not a Christian nation in case anybody in your circle needs to hear it, or if we get lucky, wants to hear it. But no, It's good to be here. Thanks for having me along.
Yeah, of course. And bear with me. I haven't been in the host seat in a while. I'm usually in your seat, which is like a breeze. You know, you get over here and you're like, oh, whoa, I got to press the buttons and do all the stuff now. Like, it's crazy. But so bear with me as we get through that. But I'll go through a few things with everybody. Just a reminder that the Atheist Experience is a product of the atheist community of Austin. It's a 501c3 or nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And I'm excited to just go straight into calls if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm all yours, man. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, actually, before we do that, I want to, because I usually do this. So again, just proving my point that I've been in the host seat in a while. Is there anything that you've been up to that I know you got backstage? You're telling me about some podcast stuff. I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but I was so interested that I felt like I was just going to pull it out of you.
Yeah, for those who don't know who I am, I came out of Christian radio. I was a Christian radio broadcaster for a lot of years. And so we played Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith and Petra and, all those groups. And we thought we were awesome, man, because we were playing this edgy music for Jesus. We're rocking for the rock. I was at a Striper concert, second row at the To Hell with the Devil tour. I mean, it's embarrassing. But a lot of people are like, do you have any old recordings of when you were a Christian radio host? And almost all of them were on cassette. A few were on mini disc, and I didn't have a cassette or a mini disc player, but I was able to find in some boxes some old stuff, and I got them converted. And
Nice.
so on Tuesday's podcast, the Thinking Atheist podcast, patrons already have it, but it goes out to everybody else on Tuesday. I play some of these old blasts from the past, Christian radio clips, and some other ones where I'm doing like the 92.1 Kiss FM, play on the hits, anyway, I'll try to sound like a radio DJ. But I think the most interesting part is the last part of the show. I was guest hosting on a conservative talk show. They were like a Fox News affiliate. I think they still may be. And this was back when I was a Fox News Christian. And it's an embarrassing segment. I literally blush thinking about it, but it's me with a co-host, and we were bitching about the war on Christmas. These people are trying to take Jesus out of the holiday that belongs to him. We are a Christian nation. And I heard that segment from 20 years ago, and my head exploded. And I thought, I don't know if I can play this for everybody. I don't know if I can expose myself to this degree, because it's just so vacuous and sad and wrongheaded and ignorant, but screw it. So you will hear on the show this week, you're going to hear me essentially throwing out all the Christian nation war on Christmas, anti-Christian bias tropes that we've been now debunking since whenever. You're going to see me back before I came out of my coma. And so that'll be interesting. Anyway, that's the one thing that I've got going on this week. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Like, that's going to be so helpful. First, I mean, so my own background, to be selfish for a second, I never was a Christian, so I'm kind of imagining here. I mean, I want to hear it from my own kind of personal, just to hear this like dichotomy of the Seth Andrews. But for people that kind of look back on, I imagine at least, right? They look back on the way that they reasoned about different things, or the beliefs that they came to. And I imagine a lot of people look back and they're like, God, man, I was such a dolt. Like, I can't believe I believe that, or whatever. I did it with my own spiritual beliefs, so I have it in a different venue, so to speak, just not nearly as culturally ingrained. And I wasn't really giving up a lot when I left. It was very easy for me to move on. I imagine that that's going to be just like cathartic, or just very, like, they're going to get a lot out of it and be like, okay, someone that I look up to, they thought this way and look where they are now. There's like this kind of, milestone, and you can see the progress in between, so to speak. So
I will say that coming out of being deeply immersed in the faith and understanding it from the outside in and the inside out, rather, has allowed me to give myself and a whole lot of other people a lot more grace. We see in the meme verse, a lot of atheist content is very derogatory and demeaning and superior and snobbish toward religious people. And I find that pathetic and awful and unfair. Christians are this and they are that. Religion is a mental illness, and all these other horrible claims that are being made. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I mean, I was a good person when I was a believer. I wanted to do the right thing. I had a moral center, all those things. And I think we diminish ourselves when we try to put believers in a box and then crush the box. And I have a great many people in my life who are in some way God believers. And I love them, and they're lovable people, and they're smart and kind, and they would give you the shirt off their back. And do they have some problematic ideas? Absolutely. But you're not going to describe them with a bumper sticker or a meme. And I think if we're going to change the world, we're not going to do it by, shouting insults across the internet. I think, let's give each other a little more grace as human beings whenever possible. And it's not always possible. But, I think look for opportunities, and maybe that's a point where conversations can begin. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that sets us up pretty well for a call coming out of California. Drew, pronouns are he, him. I saw something earlier, so maybe Drew will can elucidate on this further, but I thought I saw some specific content there that maybe they wanted to talk about. Let me see if I can click a button, talk. There we go, Mike. I'm sitting there clicking, like, did I click it? I got it. So we got Drew in California, pronouns he, him, says wants to talk about
wanting to talk about managing our temper and emotions when dealing with people that disagree. Now, I had saw something earlier, and I don't know if you're comfortable with it, around a specific topic and a conversation that you had. Did you want to talk about that thing specifically? Because I kind of have a very similar thing that happened to me. I'm just interested if maybe.
I don't know which conversation.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm referring to Drew right now.
Oh,
I'm talking to, yeah, Drew. I saw. Sorry, I should have been very clear. That's my bad.
Oh, yes. Go ahead. Go ahead,
guys. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I could talk about the specific incident, but there's been like a handful.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, and like I guess I'm not like a super social guy, so I value my friends and my friendships, and yeah. So now they've been dropping lately, out of my wheelhouse. The last one here that I called in specifically about was this friend of mine who, we spoke, we talked, we would make a point to talk every day on the phone, and she just went radio silent after our last just talk, because we actually got into a fight where she knows my background, she knows, and I know her background. She used to be like Catholic, and at some point in her life, she kind of pivoted toward more like spirituality. So I guess maybe she's kind of a deist more than a Catholic, but she knows my background, and we've had debates about this before. But she does believe in like woo and astrology in particular, it's kind of inconsistent, because she has a kid. She wants to teach her kid about being strong in STEM, and took her to like JPL to tour. And one of the things I wanted to ask her was like, would you have the guts to tell them at JPL that you believe in astrology and just see what they say? Because like, no, you wouldn't, because you'd be laughed out. But but then she, knowing my background and what I feel, she sent me my astrology, something that she picked up from some publication, and it was something positive. So I know she meant it. She meant well, and she knows about my struggles that I'd had just recently with having to find a new job. And so the thing was pretty positive about like how I'm doing. Like, see, the thing, there's
Drew, real quick, can I just real quick for the brevity of time, I just want to just see if I got you so far. Like, so if you have a friend, presumably there's like a fallout, and it's over this topic of astrology, right? And these woo beliefs. Okay, and then presumably you feel like you've overstepped some kind of boundary, or you didn't go at it the right way, because this is kind of what I wanted to get at the heart of, but I wanted to understand the context of like, when you kind of pushed back, so to speak.
Well, she kind of expresses being offended sometimes when I push back on her belief system. And then I think that, what about me? Like, she's disrespecting my belief system when she sends me things like this. I'm like, you know how I feel about this. Don't send me this. I think I was offended. And so, yeah, I started in on that. I totally.
Why does it? I don't want to hog the mic or anything. Here, I want to hand this to Seth. The two kind of things I wanted to at least say so far is, what is it about sending you the material itself that's threatening to you, or that you feel like? I mean, maybe it threatens not the right way, maybe or the right word. Maybe there's a word here that describes it. You say offended. I have Christian family members and friends, and I guess less in the family members are not giving me verses and stuff, but I have friends that will send me text messages and stuff like that, or God loves you kind of stuff, and it doesn't offend me or make me mad in that sense. I'm trying to understand what makes you upset here, just receiving that.
It was because she knows how I feel about it. And I think that she was kind of ignoring how I feel when she...
What is it that you feel? You just don't believe in it, or you have like...
Yeah, I don't believe in it. It does make me angry when people bring it up. I guess that's kind of more idiosyncratic on my part. But in this particular situation where she expresses she's being offended because I push back on like how I don't believe in it, and she feels like I'm disrespecting her belief system.
I got you. Sorry to keep cutting you off. I'm trying to go this chunk at a time and then pass it here to Seth, because the thing that's like I'm not really that I can't really move on from at this point is that like the idea like is that someone sends you something you don't believe offends you. Like I can get it in certain content, but astrology or something like that, I guess I'm not really understanding that. And maybe I'm not privy to the conversation, but like to give you a piece of like my history on this, I've done something I guess similar in the gist of what's going on, that on an Instagram post years back, before I ever debated or did any of this kind of stuff, someone posted some astrology thing as like their story or a post. And I messaged them. I was like, how can you believe this? And we get into this whole thing. It was not a good look on my part, right? I was just being kind of emotional. And I had this new shirt, of skepticism. And I wanted to show everybody this new shirt that I got. No one really cared about seeing that shirt when you throw it in their face. So before I pass it, I'm going to pass it to Seth, but I'm trying to understand, like, it couldn't clearly just be the belief people have in astrology, as opposed to something like, believe in Christianity. I could understand that if you have some negative kind of connotations, or that you have trans friends that are affected by that, right? There's just like, you could pick anything, you throw a dart and find something that will legitimately offend you for that. But I'm wondering if you just have this general kind of hatred towards like, not hatred, but I'm trying to find the word, I guess, this disposition against these beliefs. And I wonder a really easy way to go about it is just to kind of curb that from the start, because if you're building up a wall, they're going to build up a wall right behind you. And there's just no communication at that point. But Seth, sorry, I just wanted to kind of see like what it is about the belief itself that's bothering you.
Well, if I can jump in, I think I'm sensing something a little different with Drew, because I have gone through this in my own life. I think it's not about the specific claim itself, and astrology claims and all those really they are damaging because they are selling pseudoscience and solutions to a world that will often buy into them. But I think what Drew is expressing, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, my friend, is the violation of a boundary that he set in place. Look, my evangelical mother and father were devastated when the son they had raised, they trained him in the way that he should go. And when he got older, he departed from it, right? I realized I hadn't done my own thinking and I walked away. And so what happened is that a shit ton of religious people in my circle decided, they gave themselves permission to do what has been done to you. They start throwing volleys in your direction. Boom, 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 article and sermon, and read this book and do this and check this evidence out, etc. And at some point you say, don't send this to me anymore. This is not a productive conversation. This is a line that I would rather you not cross. And then they cross it anyway. Well, that is a show of disrespect. And I think you have every right to say, no, this is inappropriate of you. I've requested that you not do this. Someone who respected me would not do this. And I think your frustration over that is totally valid. I had a conversation with my own mother. It's been almost 2 years now. And we've kind of gone back and forth, and she was the same way. Every time I turned around, there was a new article telling me why God was real and I'm wrong and I'm going to hell. Mm-hmm. So we had a conversation, probably like you had. Do not do this again. Okay? I understand your position. You have heard my position. Do not do this. If you do this, I took it a step further. I said, if you do this, a consequence is going to kick in, and that is that I am going to have to remove you from my circle. We will not have communication because I don't have to live in an atmosphere of disrespect. 3 days later, another sermonette came in, and I cut that cord, and we haven't really had a relationship since. It's not my fault. And I honestly think self-respect is a big aspect of respect. And I think if I'm understanding you, Drew, you simply want your boundary to be respected, and it irritates you that it has been disrespected. Am I close?
Yeah, you pretty much got it. I mean, she's the one who set the boundary in the first place. I was always being my authentic self, and whenever she'd raise it in the past, I'd explain my position, and I wasn't rude about it. But then she would take offense to that I'm disrespecting her beliefs. And so it seems like she set the boundary that I'm to respect her. And I respected that boundary. And then she feels like she doesn't have to respect my boundary. It was implied, but I didn't explicitly state it. But
okay, let me make sure I understand, Drew. Please forgive the interruption. So she was asking you to defend your position. Why don't you believe in God? Why don't you believe in spirits? And she was the one kind of who had started that conversation. And then whenever you came back and you said, well, I disagree with astrology and I disagree with woo because she took offense at your response. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, she would say something in respect to like, here's what the astrology says. I know that the stars are aligned a certain way, so I'm expecting a lot of chaos. And then I would say something like, well, I don't believe that kind of thing. And that's when she would like express that she's taken offense to my, trying to push back on like.
Okay, well, so she told you the stars said this about your life and you said, I don't buy that. And then she got irritated. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I mean, the way it began, the whole thing
okay, all right.
was that.
Well, ultimately, I really don't think throwing facts at people is productive. We understand that identity beliefs work differently. People are led around often by their emotions, and all tribes can be guilty of in-group and identity thinking, blah, blah, blah. I've become more of a fan of the Socratic method. If we engage, we do so lightly, try to use a lot of questions, a little straight epistemology. And, I think, hey, how would you know? Can you explain this to me? I don't really buy it, but maybe you've got a better. I mean, I get those types of engagements, but if you've said, don't do this, please don't do this, and she's sending you your fucking star charts anyway, that to me is crossing a line of respect. And you have every right to say, look, I've asked you not to do this. Do not do this. Or we may not have much of a relationship moving forward. I think that's fair. I don't know. Check me on that.
Yeah, no, I agree if it got to that point. But the thing is, like, for me, it's not a deal breaker. She can go ahead and believe what she wants, but I need to be my authentic self and express myself too. My opinion.
Well, it sounds like because you put in the two things I've seen on the call screen that you're talking about your temper and managing that, and now I'm like when I'm listening to you and I guess Seth have that dialogue there, it sounds like you're kind of unfairly putting this on yourself that you're losing your temper or something, right? Because it sounded like well, at least maybe I was reading too much into it, that like maybe you get anger from like just hearing, like had the belief or there's something there or something kind of detached or something, but the way you kind of tell it there, it's not really clear to me. Like, why do you think you're losing your temper on it? Because it sounds pretty reasonable, at least the way you express it then. Right. So yeah, I'm wondering if you're kind of shitting on yourself.
But it does end up, it progresses into like me losing my temper and making arguments, just pushing back really hard.
I think managing that at the beginning is very important.
Yeah.
First of all, I really think those conversations aren't necessarily about trying to change her mind. I doubt you're going to get there. You may be able to, in certain circumstances, help to produce a crack that lets in some light and plant a seed, if I can borrow that cliche. But a lot of times we go in there and we like, no. And then they say this, well, I know that's wrong. And then they say something else and that's stupid. And how dare you? And before you know it, we can feel the vein popping out of our forehead. And I think that is something we have to do via force of will to be able to realize this is happening. I think we keep those conversations shorter. And I think we manage our language using the word I instead of you. Yeah. You're wrong. No, I don't I don't agree. I've got some challenges, some problems with that. Let me understand what my position is. You know, there are different linguistic tools to be able to be used, but knowing your limitations going in is an important part of that equation, I think.
Okay. I think I'll take that to heart, you know, that I need to not lose my temper when the discussion gets heated, and to try to see if I can like take the Socratic. I mean, I do the Socratic approach, and I do point out inconsistencies. You know, like if you believe in science in this particular sense, then why are you, you know, believing this woo nonsense?
Yeah.
If someone's, oh, forgive me, Mike. Go ahead, brother.
No, I just wanted to. I think the language really does matter, because like if I know you're saying that to us now, but if you say like nonsense to them in the conversation, right, throughout that dialectic, it's gonna. I think it's like the you thing. I know in like baseball, if like you go up to an umpire and you say like you missed that call, like you're getting thrown out. But like I feel like if you're like, hey, I feel like I wasn't that wasn't like justification on my part. I feel like, you know, if you don't do the you thing, right, like it really goes a long way. I mean, it does. In I guess not everyone's a sports person, so maybe that'll go over. I'm not even a big sports person, but I think the language does really matter, because if you do throw the little cheap nonsense kind of thing in there, which I'm not saying you do, that will, right, that gets anybody kind of like, if I hear someone just go, oh, you're that atheism nonsense, I feel like it's time for me to like, well, okay, let me give you a little taste of, you know, what we do. It's not nonsense. If you think it's nonsense, then I'll let you judge from this point, you know. But it does pull people's guards up. So I think the language is super important.
Understanding the psychology of beliefs important. People have the same fight, flight, or freeze reaction to an ideological threat that they do to a physical threat. So if she genuinely has this as a cherished belief, she's got an attachment to it. And we're all essentially meat-covered skeletons. We're emotional primates, right? We're all guilty, and we've all done this. But if there is an identity-based belief, something cherished, and it is attacked, the same part of the brain, the amygdala, fires up that would if we were threatened physically. And people change their minds from a position where they feel more safe. In most cases, in the one-on-one, certainly. In the macro level is a whole different show.
Yep.
But I think, you know, if she will engage in good faith, everybody takes a deep breath, using the word I, asking questions, genuinely assuring each other, I'm not here to make you look stupid or make myself look superior. You know, that might be possible. And there's a chance it's not. There's a chance she may not even go there. And then it's not on you to fix her, change her mind. And if you know that you've got these hot hair triggers and you've got a temper issue, you know, you might not be the one to go into that conversation in the first place. You might not have the tool set at this measure to do that. And I think self-awareness on that is very important as well.
I need to just keep my mouth shut when they bring it up and say things, you know, that, you know, it's just.
Maybe not.
I think
there's ways
to really deal with it.
It's hard. Look, I think it's a hard skill to learn how to kind of, in a healthy way, control the dialogue. You know, where you're like not letting it get heated. You can kind of see those steps where it's getting there, and you pull back a little bit. Like it's a skill. It's a total skill, and I don't know. You should just refrain, right, and just not engage. It's important. Those are the people that you can, you know, add to the collective of people that, you know, are trying to you know, have the same interest in the same goals, right? So
well, I also think it's about a double standard, right? You don't want to be in a room where everybody else is able to be their authentic selves and say their opinions,
sure, and
you're the one sitting on your hands trying to quote unquote keep the peace. That's not peace. Mm-hmm. It's just an absence of conflict, right? Yep. And so I do think you should be able to speak your authentic thoughts and be your authentic self without being judged and without feeling like you got to, you know, zip it. To keep it, you're not on this planet to keep everybody else comfortable, and there's a liberation in knowing that.
Yep, that's true. And there's this weird kind of game you play, you know, appeasing different people and packaging it in a way, but also, you know, not being unauthentic about it, you know.
Yeah. Does that help at all, Drew?
Yeah, immensely. Thank you so much. Just so you know that this person was I did try being diplomatic at first, and then it just kind of escalated because, she kept on bringing it up, and so that's why.
I think it's fine to decide if you have a line to make clear where that is, to say maybe we should talk about other things. Here's kind of my guideline. Please respect it. And if that guideline's just respected, I think you're going to need to make a decision as to how much disrespect you are going to allow in your own circle. So hang in there. Let us know how it goes. Okay.
Yeah, will do. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah. I'm seeing in the chat that we're hearing mouse clicking and typing over what's going on. I think I mentioned this earlier, and we didn't think it was going out over the broadcast. But.
Oh, that could just be me. I got a nice loud new mouse. So
okay.
Maybe that's everyone hearing my new loud mouse.
I'm hearing a lot I hearing over here, so somebody was hearing it, and I wanted to throw that out to the producers or whatever. So.
Yeah, apologies. I can't hear it myself if that's the case, and I didn't detect it at the beginning. But
good.
But yeah, sorry to anyone if that is annoying. I will try to minimize the mouse clicks.
It's all first world problems, man. It's all first world problems. You said something when you did your monologue. Okay. We were talking about Jesus and God and sin and all those, the sin nature and the nature of the Almighty and, the nonsensical whole vibe of the biblical narrative. And it was Tim Ward, who is state director of American Atheists for my home state of Oklahoma, had posted, I think today, an interesting question along those lines. And I wanted to throw it out.
Sweet.
But he said, if, why would God allow original sin, meaning an inherited sin nature, through the generations, contaminating everybody, the cancer of evil? Why could you have original sin and not original salvation? Right? If I could be born with a sin nature, why could I not then be born with a salvation nature? Where I'm already pre-rescued. And I never thought of it in that term before, but I wanted to throw it out. And I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, if it made any sense, or if I'm missing something.
No, I mean, because what a response, at least when I talk to some people about this, if you gave that, what I anticipate the response is that, well, look, having this original sin, it gives you this ability to wash it away. You don't just start off, you start off with this thing and you got to work towards it. And this is why this is important to me that I think people really pay attention to what's going on when people talk about evil and good, because it does this really weird flipping where now that original sin, like I'm saying in the monologue, that's something that's better, right? Should occur over the original salvation, right? There's more motivation according to God or his aims to have that, because by those lights, that's a good thing. I mean, now they're going to say zoomed in, it's a horrible thing to sin. But on the grand scheme of things, it should occur, right? Otherwise, God would have made the world that you're talking about. We just have salvation and we freely choose the good. But evidently, there's something that's better than having just the good. That's having evil. What? Makes no fucking sense. And that's why I rail home all the time that when people bring up problems of evil, a lot of times I'm not convinced that theists do have a problem of evil in this sense. Now, people always, wait, what do you mean? Clearly there's this problem. Yeah, but when you talk with them, it turns out that they're willing to justify any of those actions. The Holocaust, it was bad, but all things considered, it should have happened because it's according to God's plan. Think about Pontius Pilate, or Jesus dying on the cross. That should have occurred. That wasn't a bad thing. He should have done that, right? You flip this on its head where now it's I can't make sense of this. And then I was told that original sin is something that shouldn't be done, right? It's this normative notion, shouldn't be done. But now, hold on, there's no evil. So now it's something that should be done. So now Jesus came down here and died for something that should have occurred? Wait, what? It just makes no fucking sense at all.
In my circle, it's more everything good is God and everything bad is Satan, or it's a fallen world or free will. And this is one of my favorite ones. Oh, well, the reason, babies die in childbirth, and the reason that, people are kidnapped in the streets, and the reason there's war and famine and cancer and COVID and all that stuff is because free will. Yeah. And that's why things are so shitty. And the exercise I like here is, but when we die, we all go to heaven. And is there any pain in heaven? No. Is there any suffering? Is there cancer? Is there COVID? Are there plane crashes? Is there any bad in heaven? No, everything's perfect. Yeah, everyone's okay. Well, then you're telling me that there's no free will in heaven, right? And they just wink out. You can literally see their eyes go back into the back of their skull, right? If the reason things went to shit is because we were all supposed to have free will, then the only reason they would not in heaven is because we would no longer have free will. Blows their minds. Yeah. It's kind of awesome. So
yeah, and you can go further with this too before I get into these announcements, where you can talk about like, well, hey, look, do you think God could create, this is kind of like J.L. Mackey's point, right? It's like, can God, do you think it's some people want to say metaphysically possible. I still don't really know what that means. I don't think it really actually means anything. I think it's just a bunch of gibberish.
It's a jello word.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of gibberish. Now I understand like logical possibility. Okay, so maybe we get something concrete. Do you think and that's what they're saying God can do, anything logically possible. So is it logically possible for God to create a world where agents just freely do the good always, right? They come across a bad decision and a good decision, and for each time they always choose the good, just like a basketball player that always makes their shot. They could miss it, but they always make it. Now, is that logically possible? It seems so, right? But what they'll say is that, but then God create like robots and stuff. But if you have the view that Seth is telling me that they believe about being robots in heaven, that's apparently valuable to you. But also, God is a being that can only do the good. He can't choose evil according to you. Is he a robot? Does he have freedom? Like they have to, like my friend Aaron calls it like cafeteria theism. You got to like pick some stuff out. I don't want that. Put it back. Grab this. Put it. It's this buffet table of stuff that you put away and take back whenever it's convenient for you. So it's nonsense. Is the way I would say it.
There's one last heaven and hell argument that I've heard that I think is awesome.
Let's hear it.
I'll just toss it out now.
Sure, of course.
But people are like, is there any pain or suffering or angst or depression or anything negative at all in heaven?
Heaven, yeah.
And they're like, no, it's perfect. It's nothing but light and Yanni music and the family dog and green grass and rainbows and mansions and all gold and pearls and all that stuff. Okay, wonderful. No, nothing negative. Do you believe I'm going to hell? Yes. Do you care about me? Yes. So if you know, when you're in heaven, if you know that I'm cooking in agony forever in Hades, and you are aware of that in heaven, how could you experience perfect bliss? And then they're like, well, God, he renews us. Yeah. He starts us sort of from square one. I'm like, well, then it's no longer you. Now it's somebody else. Yeah. Your identity has been erased. That's a whole other. Anyway, you put that one in the holster, everyone, for the next time you get into a heaven. What's
the difference between the brain and the vat at that point, just systematically deceiving you? It's just like, you know what I mean? Like you've just put yourself in this weird Cartesian demon now.
By the way, apparently there's a little bit of a lag between my video and my audio. That's not a technical problem. I actually am like this in real life. My voice actually does drag about a half a second after my mouth moves. It's been a thing since birth, where I'm taking medication to try to fix it. My fault.
That's why when I met you briefly in Atlanta and just sheepishly came up and was like, hey, big fan. And then you started talking. I was like, what? And I just walked away. I was weirded out. So that's why it was so brief. It's like, yeah, this guy's weird.
Yeah. By the way, you guys have me, and I must beg your forgiveness. You have me till about 5:30, and then I have got to leave everyone early. John's on standby. He's in the bullpen waiting to pinch hit for me. Wait, is that right? Bullpen? And so my apologies for having to do that, but I got a hard stop coming up. So when you see me disappear, I'm going to apologize in advance and thank my gracious host for allowing that. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. If and that said, we do need calls. So if John gets up here and we have some more calls to go through, please call 512-991-9242. We will take your calls. We always prioritize theist callers, but if you are an atheist, we will take your calls. And before I get to an atheist call, let me adjust my screen here, minimize that. Okay, well, I want to get into some announcements before we get into the call. So this is an announcement I'm excited for because I will be there. Not that I'm not excited about any of the other announcements, crew. Hold on there. I'm not saying nothing. But this one in particular is going to be really fun because it involves me. It's that time of year again. We are so excited to announce that the Bat Cruise tickets are up for sale Forrest and myself will be there alongside other hosts that you love or like. Join us August 16, 2025, and get your tickets at tiny.cc/backcruise. Tickets sell out fast, so get yours now. And I can tell you, it's a blast. I was literally just, because I was trying to see if I had, actually, I don't even know if I should say this now, because I feel weird saying this. Like, I was going to say, I wanted to see if I had taken a picture with you at the is it
Atlanta.
Atheist Convention? Atlanta Atheist Convention? I can't remember the name. American Atheist
It's probably
Convention.
American Atheist.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. And I was looking through and I saw like all the photos that I posted from the last back cruise and just like flooded back memories. So everyone that came to the last back cruise and got a picture and said, hey, it's really awesome, really fun. It's like the one time in my life that I feel cool, and special and everybody else there. So it really means a lot to us to come out there and support. It's really cool seeing that. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate anyone that does decide to come out.
I've always wanted to do it. The things have never lined up for me to be able to participate, but one day I plan to be there for that because I hear it's just remarkable. So it's so much fun. Yeah. It's so much fun. I really got to know Secular Rarity last time, and we had a blast. It was real fun. If you like what we do, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Giving to our Patreon ensures our ability to continue to produce the content that you love. Visit tiny.cc/PatreonAXP. And below the chat, we are running a direct fundraiser. All the proceeds go directly to the ACA. YouTube does not take a cut. So if you want to support us there directly, please click the donate button to support the mission of the ACA. And we also want to send a big thank you out to the crew that's probably mad at me for prioritizing announcements and how much I like them over others. They really are beautiful people, aren't they? I mean, you got to be born with that. That's just natural. That's just natural. Indeed. And you get to, if you go to the back cruise, you get to kind of see how it all works in there. And it's really, really interesting. I remember I pulled up, I was just immediately whoa, okay. This is really cool. I got Vern sets up the TV outside. I got the sprinklers. If it's really hot, it's really cool. Really, I'm really wanting to sell it to anybody that's just kind of on the fence about it. Hop over that fence and come hang out with us. And let's see if we got some super chats. I'm gonna scroll down. We don't have any super chats now, but if you want to support us, that's another way you can support us by sending a super chat, and I will get Seth to read it if he's still here. But since we have 18 minutes with Seth, let's try to get to this call. And just a reminder to please call in. And if you're a theist, we will prioritize your call. We got Jim in Missouri. Pronouns are he, him. And I don't know. I mean, I tend to agree with what the call screener has, but maybe we'll hear it from Jim. Wants to talk about the resurrection story and how it is a complete fabrication. Now, just to be clear, you're talking about the resurrection, not crucifixion, because I get in conversation, some people will I've done this, will say crucifixion, they mean resurrection or whatever, and so I just want to make sure we're specifically on the resurrection.
Yes, and the reason I say it's a fabrication is if you read the Bible, they say they laid Jesus in a tomb. But in reality, if he was crucified, which, let's face it, crucifixion was back then was as common capital punishment as lethal injection is today, he would not have been buried in a tomb. He would have been left up on the cross for about a couple days for the buzzards to get him. And then when he was taken down, he would have been thrown into a pit.
Yeah, and that's actually I don't think there was an empty tomb. I don't know what Seth's view was. I don't really know that so this is definitely a godless engineer kind of topic. I'm sure that he'd love to talk about this as well. But I'm not convinced of an empty tomb. I think you wouldn't have Joseph of Arimathea been given some provisional burial rights. It just seems it could be, right. I'll say anything in history, sure, but I want evidence to kind of raise the probability. Speaking of John, by the way, we got his mug behind me being a superhero, so I just want to throw that out there. I agree with you, but I think our crucifixion, our sources for Roman crucifixions are pretty limited. I want to say there's only 2, but this is not my area, so.
Okay, well, maybe I should have called in another week. But again,
I was going to say it might cause a whole other problem. So.
That's all good. But again, he would have been thrown into a pit or a cave or some sort of mass grave with all the other.
Well, or left on as part of the humiliation process, or deterrent. Yeah.
And somebody, when they say, the Romans didn't find his body, so he must have rose from the dead. It's like, no, he was being thrown into the mass grave. They would have had to find somebody who was there, who knew what Jesus looked like, and they would have had to go into the pit or cave or whatever. And let's be honest, you've seen one stiff, you've seen them all.
Well, I don't even go this far into the story. I mean, we're bringing a claim of Christ's resurrection out of the same book that has humankind originating from a dirt man and rib woman in an enchanted garden with talking snakes and 900-year-old humans and giants and sea monsters and blood magic and, a God impregnating an unwed teenager with himself for the purpose of ritual sacrifice, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I just think I don't even go that far. I'm one of those guys where I think there might have been a dude named Jesus that the supernatural myth was based on. There may not have been. So, I mean, we can make that maybe one of the larger pieces of the counter-apologetics puzzle. He wouldn't have been put in a tomb unless they thought he was something really, really, really special, which is going to be the apologetic you're going to hear. But, at the beginning of the story, I mean, I just, there's no evidence for me. I know Bart Ehrman would disagree, but we don't think we can be convinced there was even a crucifixion of a Christ. We just simply cannot know. You can't quote the book to source the book, to prove the book. But I don't know. It's an interesting angle on the resurrection. Jim, was there anything else?
Well, I kind of want to agree with John a little bit. It was a call I did a couple months ago when I called in. It was with Cross-Examiner and Justin, where I said that I have always compared Jesus to guys like Robin Hood or King Arthur, as they're all legendary characters. Maybe there was a Robin Hood, but what we read about him is probably a legend. When they say he robbed from the rich to give to the poor, for all we know, if there really was a Robin Hood, he may have stole from everybody and kept everything.
Yeah, I mean, I leave a lot of this to my like I have mythicist friends that are really into the Bible, like getting into the weeds, and then like my mythicist friends like John and the people I know on TikTok like Cyber, and I let them go. Like I think I go further than Seth. Did they go further than me? I'm happy to my thing with it is I like to take a position that I am more convinced by than any other position, and that's kind of the standard view in scholarship that Jesus is a failed apocalyptic preacher. Now, a lot of my motivations for doing that in a conversation with somebody is that if I talk to a Christian and we want to talk about that, I think they're going to put up a wall if I was a mythicist. Like even if I was a mythicist, I would run the same kind of argument that I give, because it's like more agreed upon data. And if you've listened to me on the show, the reason why I take like a position that gods don't exist, or like I'm more inclined, if gun put to the head, to answer that way, is because the way I look at it is the kind of the best way to talk with somebody from my perspective when you kind of get in the weeds with things. If you're like really getting philosophical or whatever, you're really getting into the history. I think is a good point to just look at like, well, look, the view that I have commits me to a lot less and explains that data. And if I take data points that they don't agree with, it's really hard to help them. They might just build up that wall. So like, for example, when someone brings up the Kalam, I'm happy to accept the second premise of the argument that the universe had a beginning. What I'm not happy to do is accept the first premise that everything that begins to exist has a cause, because the universe could have a beginning such that it doesn't have a cause, right? And so I know that if I took a route of like an infinite regression or something like that, they're just like, that's impossible. And then they'll never give the contradiction. And so that's my kind of motivations for why I do that, at least in the conversations. But I think if you wanted to talk about the mythicist stuff, John and those people are really good to talk to, but I only go so far as well.
Okay, well, I may call back when he's on and talk about this a little bit more, but
I think that'd be good. I think we don't get enough of the mythicist conversation on the show, so I think it would be a good thing.
okay, yeah, I apologize, but I just
No apologies.
I didn't know you guys were on. Well, I didn't know you guys were going to be on instead of Godless Engineer. But again,
Yeah, we're the substandard secondary hosts. We're sorry to disappoint you, but when you return call down the road, I'm sure you'll get the A-listers who can better address your challenge. So thanks for calling, though, Jim. We appreciate you, brother.
You guys are good. You guys are good, man. I'm not trying to be an ass.
Oh, no, I was just having fun with you.
No, you're not.
I'm
You're
just
not.
having fun with you. It's all
Yeah.
good. I received the spirit in which you called, and it's all good fun. Thanks for calling. Appreciate you.
All right.
I'll talk to you guys later.
I think one of when we get into the crucifixion and the resurrection, I like logistical challenges have their place in counter apologetics. We're like, well, how could this have happened? And why wasn't this reported? And why are there 3 versions of that story? And why are there 4 conflicting versions of the empty tomb? Blah, blah, blah. But one of my favorites has to do with the actual crucifixion itself. So when Jesus dies and he says, it is finished, and he gives up the spirit or whatever, the Bible says that the graves of the saints opened up at that time. And I believe it was on the day of the resurrection when all those saints came up out of the ground and they walked the streets of Jerusalem. So we're talking about essentially a parade of undead people. I cannot in my mind think of anything that would have been more remarkable, more noteworthy, more historic, and yet not one contemporary historian thought it was interesting enough to document that had happened. And so I'll actually have that conversation. But hey, whenever all the dead saints became undead and walked and paraded the streets of Jerusalem, why is it that there's no account anywhere other than in this book here that why do you think no other historian thought that was notable? And again, they just totally wink out. But it is an interesting exercise. So I think there is utility in asking questions like that. So no, Jim's much appreciated. I think that's a good question. So
yeah, absolutely. So we do have another call, a theist call, Seth. I didn't want to just not ask you before you head out here, since you're getting to that. So it's 6:30 my time. So if I say 6:30, I'm sorry.
I got you.
I don't want to freak you out. You're like, whoa, wait, hold on. What time is it? But did you want to join this call, and then when it's 6:30, we can just swap you out even mid call, or?
No, I mean, I've got 8 minutes. Let me give it a shot, and if I need to tap out, I will. Let's go for it.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's get Shabazz in here. Hopefully I'm saying that right. No pronouns given. Is a theist and wants to know a couple of things: where atheists get their morals, and why does the average atheist seem to be so disrespectful and condescending about their beliefs? I'm going to pass it to Seth about whichever one you want to answer on that, man, or both.
Well, let me hear the question in your own words, Shabazz. What are you thinking?
For starters, you all are pronouncing it properly. It is Shabazz. And what I said there exactly was, where is it that any individual atheist draws their sense of morality from?
Well, I see evolved ethics as making really good sense. I don't need a third party. I don't need 10 commandments. I don't need an objective standard bearer to tell me what is right and what is wrong. I can understand and have evolved an understanding of pro-social behaviors, right? Our ancestors, the primates on the African savanna, those of us who engaged in pro-social behaviors, cooperation, even empathy towards others, we were then safer. We were able to create communities, aka tribes. We were better at procuring resources and warding off threats. Mm-hmm. Our survival rate increased when we engaged in ethical behaviors. Now, certainly there are exceptions, but we know what harm is. We know what pain is, we know what suffering is, and we know what it's like for others to experience that as well. And I think it makes perfect sense for evolved primates to not only understand, but be able to participate in those types of ethical systems far beyond any kind of religion.
Right. Well, that makes sense to me, except I would ask you, and I'm sure you've probably heard this question before, then it comes to agreeing on what is right and what is wrong. Because like surely, you know, to one individual, stealing something might not be wrong if you don't get caught. And to another one, it's wrong regardless.
Well, I understand the imperfection of, you know, so I don't know if there even is such a thing as objective ethics, but you and I both understand harm. We understand what it's like to feel pain. We understand antisocial behaviors.
Yeah.
Largely, we do.
Yeah.
And if someone was to come out and say rape and murder are wrong, I would say that the vast majority of human beings, evolved primates, would already know that that is incorrect. We would understand and recognize harm. I think the larger implication of your question is this, that you and I wouldn't know this if we hadn't been told or informed, if the standard had not been put in place by some other somewhere. Are you part of a specific religious tradition? Do you believe in a certain deity?
I'm a Muslim.
So it's Allah that was given you the standard by which you would know right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know right from wrong and I don't believe in Allah, where did I get the information?
Well, the Muslim would argue that you know right from wrong, that's your opinion. And I'm sure that what you would say is right from wrong, some of the things that you would say are right. I'm sure the Quran would say those things are right. Some of the things you would say were wrong. I'm sure you would say they are wrong, because it's like you said, it's not like we don't recognize right from wrong, recognizing when we cause others pain and so forth and so on. It's just no standard. Nobody has to stick to any of those things, and they can all become subjective instead of objective.
That's not true. I mean, you and I live in social contracts where human beings have put together a literal structure for ethical behavior. We have rights and wrongs. We have do's and don'ts. We have laws that can be made or broken. And so, you know, we've actually done a pretty good, I mean, it's very imperfect, but a pretty good job of constructing restraints for those who are engaging in antisocial and even destructive behaviors. But I'll tell you, you could say that Allah put that standard in place, and then the Christian would say that Yahweh put the standard in place, and someone of another religion could say it was their deity that put that standard in place, blah, blah, blah. All of you, anybody who makes that claim about a specific agent with a proper name, especially one with supernatural powers, is going to have to meet an exceptional burden of proof, right? So where is the proof that Allah is responsible for our moral standard?
Yeah, the individual is, I personally, I can't give you proof. I can only tell you what's proof to me.
Well, no, but prove it to me. I mean, what good is it if only you can prove it to yourself? You think you're proving it to yourself, but you can't demonstrate it to anybody else.
Yeah, it's like if you wanted us to accept some view that we have to first accept the law or whatever God's existence first. I mean, me and Seth are just going to like pull the cord on the bus and get off when we're not being told anything that, you know, convinces us or even anything at all. So it's important to get us to your position, right?
If I believe in God Y or God Z, and I say, look, I know God Z put the moral standard in place. I know it for sure, but there's no way for me to prove it to you.
Yeah.
How convinced would you be?
Man, I wouldn't be convinced. Somebody telling me that there's no way to prove something to them or to me, then I would have no reason to be convinced. But it's like I said, though, I can't tell you what's proof to you because we don't necessarily see things the same way. All I can do is tell you what is proof to me, and then you can do with that what you will.
I think proof is proof. You know, if gravity works for you, it works for me. It works for Mike. You know, I'm just saying.
No, but proof. Yeah, but proof is not proof though, because everybody doesn't think the same, see things the same, and feel the same way about everything. So something that is proof to me I could tell you that a woman buying me flowers is proof that she loves me.
I think that's confused though. No, I think it's, well, I mean, look, we might disagree, and there might be issues of like rationality, like someone who's like locked in a box their whole life and comes out of it or something, and like, you know, if they didn't know what water is, or they made some error in reasoning, we wouldn't be like they're systematically irrational. Like obviously we would, you know, you can take things into consideration about people's upbringing and how sheltered they were and that kind of stuff. But so I mean, like I agree that like there might be this you know, spectrum of what somebody might or might not accept versus you. But if we're looking for anything, just something, like just one thing, like try us. Maybe we have the same proof detectors as you do. So just try us with it.
Yeah, that's possible.
But
yeah.
I do.
Well, the reason that I believe. Yeah, the reason that I believe in
real quick, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Creator.
This is actually just for show's sake. I'm going to let you finish. I do apologize, but I got to get Seth out of here because Seth's got. We got to be considerate to his time considerations. You are most kind.
Thank you for your patience. Yeah. And so I want to say thank you to everybody. Forgive my early departure. John's going to do an amazing job. Mike, it was always it's always good to see you work, my friend, and good luck with the rest of the call. Okay.
Yeah, you too. Have fun, man. Have fun.
All right, bye.
All right. Sorry, I wanted to be considerate to Seth's time consideration. So, but sorry, go ahead.
I understand and appreciate it.
Yeah.
I understand that and appreciate it.
Cool.
So I was going to say that, well, for starters, the reason that I believe in some kind of creator in the first place is because I don't believe in luck, chance, or coincidence. So I don't believe that an entire universe and an earth full of life and this reality that we exist in, I don't believe that it could have come about by luck, chance, or coincidence. And then the reason that I believe that
I don't think it did either. So I don't think it did. I don't think it came by chance either. So I'm an atheist. So that's. I mean, this is a kind of a weird way to go about this because there's going to be so many views that an atheist can take, and you would just be, you know, if I'm being charitable and saying you're knocking them out as you go, which we're not, you're just kind of doing this thing where you're focusing on someone else's view. But, you know, imagine we show all the reasons for atheism, you know, there's no good reasons here. Well, you still have all of your work left ahead of you about which specific God, you know, maybe it's kind of like the Christian God, but maybe it's not at all like the Christian God. Okay, that's not very clear. So let's just do it this way instead of having to, like, you know, go one by one. We, you know, kill all the little birds with one argument stone or one proof stone or something, right? What is like and don't worry about like it, like it's a dialogue, right? So don't worry about like if I think it sucks or something like that. I just genuinely want to know what it is that convinced you. Right? What is the thing that you hold on to and you go, yeah, it's really hard. And if it's going to be something like, well, I can't see it in this other way, I might stop you because that to me is like, that's just like personal incredulity, right? That's like, I can't imagine X, so therefore it's Y. And that's fallacious types of reasoning isn't really interesting to me. So what's the reason why you believe in Allah specifically?
Yeah, I was coming to that. I was saying that.
Okay, sorry.
That was the reason that I believe in a creator at all, and the reason that I believe that Allah is that particular creator is because of having first lived 28 years of my 28 years of life up until the point that I reverted to Islam and then read the Quran, and then it was ultimately Quran that convinced me.
What about the Quran? The Quran convinced you? I've never said the Quran like that before.
A few things. You know, one thing is I come from a Christian background, and when I started reading and studying the Bible, that led to me rejecting Christianity real quick. And then every issue that I had with the Bible,
hold on,
cleared up.
I'm sorry. I'm confused. I'm trying to understand. So you were a believer, and you read the Quran, and it showed you all the stuff in the Christian faith was false. Why? First off, why think it's true? That's the part I'm trying to understand. Why think, like, I can write a book and read a book. I can write a pretty crappy book. You know, I don't think the religious books are particularly good books. So I can write a book what next? Like, it's not just like that it's in a book. Like, you can give me some type of like content from the book, and that this thing was what convinced me.
Yeah. But look, dude, for starters, my bad about that, because I do have a real roundabout way of talking, and you did ask me a direct question, and I didn't start answering it directly.
You're good. No worries.
Like I said, excuse me for that, and now let me try to answer it directly.
Sure. Okay. Apologies to you as well. I have these conversations a lot, so it's like being a taxi driver that gets cut off all the time. You get a little bit more annoyed than probably the random guy that drives down the street because you deal with it all day. So apologies.
Yeah. I can dig it. So there's a verse in the Quran, for instance, because the Quran has falsification tests, for instance, and there's a verse in there that says basically that if this book is not from Allah, then somebody just creates something like it, and then that will prove that it's not from Allah. I mean, so and then of course that challenge is only for the Arabic speakers, because of course you have to understand Arabic to be able to create something that's written in Arabic. But nevertheless, that challenge has been running for 1,450 years unmet. It's got those prophecies fulfilled in there.
Shabazz, I'm just kind of curious. What's the criteria for trying to determine whether or not you could accurately impersonate one of the multiple authors of the Quran?
Well, there aren't multiple authors of it anyway. There's only one, and the criteria is that's it. Well, it's like I said, for starters, you have to understand the ins and outs of Arabic. And one thing that Quran did was introduced a new word that the ancient Arabs.
Wait, I have to speak Arabic to know to be able to be a real believer. Is that, I'm not understanding?
No. I said maybe this wasn't a good example for me to bring up, because, like I said, it's that you have to understand Arabic in order to even be able to meet that challenge. Not that you have to understand Arabic in order to be a believer.
Okay, so Shabazz,
that are true.
Shabazz, so I'm not even asking about the Arabic. I'm not. Let's just let's talk about this from the perspective that the person who's trying to reproduce it or trying to impersonate the Quran knows Arabic and everything like that. What is the criteria for determining between the Quran and this impersonation? Like, does it just not sound similar? I'm assuming that you don't. Maybe, do you think that God literally wrote the Quran, or do you think that man wrote the Quran for God? Because there's a big difference there.
It sounds question.
The Muslim believes that Allah spoke the Quran to the angel Jibril, and the angel Jibril recited it to the Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, and the Prophet, upon whom be peace, recited it to man. So we think men wrote it down. We think it was a revelation from the Creator.
So man wrote it. So I mean, if man wrote it, then we can easily impersonate like somebody. I mean, there's ghostwriters out there all the time that impersonate authors. Yeah. I mean, hell, I could queue up Chat GPT, give them the entire Quran, and just tell it, impersonate this, write similar verses that say something new, like don't fuck 8-year-olds, like that. That would be 9-year-old. She was 9-year-old, right? So it's like I could totally write a verse.
Yeah, somebody tried that with Chat GPT. A Muslim did, and it didn't work. And as far as the being able to speak Arabic goes,
hold on. I'm sorry. This is all blowing by me real quick. I'm trying to pick up the pieces as we go. This sounds like inherently question begging. Like, do you know what I mean when I say that?
Begging the question?
Yeah.
How does it sound like that?
So, like, the thing in contention seems to be assumed here, right? Like, it's parasitic on me accepting this thing. Like I wouldn't if I already believed the conclusion that you have, like, then yeah, great, right, whatever. But you wouldn't have to convince me. But you're trying to convince me. So the thing in contention, right? It's like what you're saying is it has to, like, be like this thing. But why think that thing hosts truth in the first place? If you just are saying, like, if I try to rival this text with some other text and you just say, but it's not the Quran, and just assume the truth of the Quran to begin with, then it just sounds question begging to me. It just sounds like you're assuming the thing in contention, right? So like what I'd like to ask is why, like, what is the content of the book that's truth revealing, or that states propositions that are true, that would like rationally commit me into believing that a law exists? Because we're just skipping over like the actual like semantic content, the stuff that like I need to sink my teeth into to understand. What are these like true revelations in there that I would look at and go, yeah, fucking a law exists, man? What is that?
Yeah. So I'm not trying to convince you, because it's like I said from the start.
That's fine. I'm just trying to ask you what it is. Don't worry about me being convinced. Most people aren't convinced in a conversation between an atheist and a Muslim, and a lot of times it takes progress, or they have to reflect on it and stuff. They don't have the expectation that you're going to convince me right away. Maybe I'll think about this tomorrow and it'll convince me. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But I can't ever be convinced if you don't give me these answers. These are the things that, like, one way to look at this is you're talking to somebody that you could like save their soul or bring them to your view or whatever. Now there's a requirement for you to do something for that to happen. If they ask you like a question, it seems like that's the thing that they need in order to believe it. It's in your best interest to try to answer that, because that's what they've kind of spilled the beans. They've kind of told you, hey man, this is what would convince me. Like, I'm asking these questions because they're important to me. And so what I'm asking you is why think that the things revealed in there are truth tracking or true propositions? And if there are those things, what are they? And how do we know that they're true?
Yeah, but man, I feel a lot more respected than the last time I called this line. But I really would appreciate, though, because like y'all ask me a lot of questions, and then I'll be on the verge of trying to answer one. I'll be on the verge of trying to answer the question.
Yeah, but the reason why I cut you, the reason why I interject is because I'm like asking you how your day is, and you're like Tuesday. That's why I interrupt you. And also, I talk with a lot of theists throughout the week. My ability to predict that they're not going to answer the question is pretty good. It's not always good. I mess up, but I'm pretty confident if I let you go on, what you are not going to do is give me some proposition that's stated in the Quran that's true, and the method how you know it's true. And the reason why I want to get there is because I want to know if we do this real big circle back to the beginning, which is what I predict is going to happen.
Yeah. So, one other thing, other than the challenge that's been running for 1,450 years unmet, other than that, Quran says things.
Are you answering me right now? It's not clear that you. Are you?
Yeah.
Something? Okay.
Yeah. I was saying. Other than that, other than the challenge that's been running unmet for 1,450 years, the Quran also has information in there they're questionable about how anybody at all, let alone an illiterate man in the middle of the desert, could have possibly known. For instance, it talks about the bee, a honeybee storing nectar in one of its stomachs. And that's, of course, something that we didn't know until until we invented microscope, until human beings invented microscope. So,
John, is that enough content is that enough content for you to chew on? It doesn't sound like he knows the story that is very convincing and amazing, but he's like, it's like the bees and stuff. Like, if this was like revealing, I wouldn't be like, oh, it's kind of like the bees in the desert.
Y'all asking me about a book. Y'all asking me about a book that has 300 some odd pages in it.
A book that you dedicate your life. A book that you dedicate your fucking life to. I would expect a little bit more than there's a guy in the desert and how could he do the stuff with the bees and the honey. That's fucking what you said, dude. Okay? If I held something really, like, if I had this really cherished, heavily cherished belief, I would hope John would have a talk with me and be like, bro, that dude asked you, and you started saying a guy in the desert and bees and honey. What the fuck? What was that answer? I'm asking for a legitimate answer here, man. If you don't know the own text, how am I supposed to be convinced when it sounds like you don't even know the text you're supposed to be defending? Oh, sorry, unmuted.
Again, I'm not trying to convince you. I know it quite well. And once again, I'm not trying to convince you. Like I've been saying the whole time, I'm telling you dudes what was convincing and what was proof to me. And these are the types of things that was proof to me. And also, it's like I said, man, the book is a few hundred pages long. It's easy for you to just listen to any one thing that I say and then say, oh, this is the problem with that, or that is the problem with this. But
vague thing, generic thing, vague thing, generic thing, vague thing, generic thing.
Right.
No context.
Shabazz, I still have yet heard, like, going all the way back, I guess. Let's try to hyper focus in on this, right? What is your criteria for actually distinguishing between somebody that just made shit up and says that Allah wrote it versus the Quran? Like, what's the criteria? Is it the number of verbs used? Is it the frequency of verbs? Is it the distance of one word to another word? Does God include, like, I know that there are random letters or words or something at the beginning of every of every book or whatnot, but I mean, I could fucking write that. So I'm just trying to get a sense of what is the criteria that you're applying to other people that have tried to impersonate the Quran and has been proven to fail this supposed test.
Explaining earlier where that particular thing is concerned, one of the things that Quran did was introduced a new word in actually, I can't remember if it was every chapter or every verse. I know it was at least every chapter. It introduced a new word that the ancient Arabs were somehow didn't know but were familiar with, and they found that stunning. That was one of the reasons that they couldn't replicate it. And you know, it's like I said, that's just one thing. This is a whole book that we're talking about, though. So it's like I said, it's easy to just take any one thing and say, yeah, well, this is what I think about that. But that's just what you think about it, though.
The way something is written doesn't.
Can I ask my second question?
No, well, we can get there. But the way this is just really bad logic. The way that something is written says nothing about its truth. Like the syntax of how something is written says nothing. Now we get into the semantic content, right? Now you could have like a bunch of gibberish that I could ask the speaker, like, hey, it's not clear what you're saying. Are you saying this? Could you rewrite it? And they explain it to me and then be like, oh, that is a true proposition. You're saying it rained on Tuesday. Okay, yeah, that's true. Right. So you can have this varying degrees of like legibility, or maybe you need further inquiry by the speaker because it's not really well written. Maybe it's like amazing. It's like written so well and it's garbage. It's a lot of philosophy. Right. So I don't really know this criterion of like it has to replicate this thing. Why the fuck should we care about replicating it in the first place? What that assumes that there's something like true or useful. Maybe it's a utility thing. If it's a utility thing, I'm not interested in. Right. This is like the lucky socks in my drawer.
The point in being able to replicate it is that if you could do that, it would prove that it's not from the creator. That's the challenge. It's just seemingly question begging. The thing in contention is whether or not this was like God inspired, something that lends credit to being like God in any way. Now, one thing that's not clear on the table is what the semantic content is that's like so profoundly amazing that we couldn't replicate it. We just have this vague thing that there's the Quran and it can't be replicated or whatever. I don't know why I should care about it being replicated without some demonstration that the thing should be taken seriously as like a device for truth, right? This just seems like I'm getting these vague things that I could say about any other book, that it was written this way. Only this book could come up with a really good trinity that confuses the ever-living fuck out of people and they debate about it. And that's part of the virtue. You know, I can do this stuff all day long and just go, it's not this thing. It doesn't replicate this thing. So those things can't be true. But that's assuming that the thing that I'm holding up is true in the first place. It's question begging. It's assuming the thing to be true. That's the thing in contention. I could never believe. It's not.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it is question begging, because it's not assuming. I don't think you need to assume that the thing is true in order to be able to replicate it. You can just replicate it to prove that it's not true. Like I said, that's the whole challenge.
Okay, but then you could just try to give me the content that I'm looking for, right? Like in the Bible or something, it's like, oh, well, someone's going to tell me that we know that Jesus rose from the dead because these people detail their experiences and the 500 witnesses, right? Now, crappy arguments, but there's something for me to chew on and go through. I can talk about how, well, there's only this one guy writing about the 500 people. We don't have 500 different accounts of it, or we can systematically go through it. But it sounds like you're like purposefully avoiding putting something on the table, or that you don't really know the contents of the Quran, because when you tried earlier, you said something about the desert, the bees, and the honey. Now maybe there was a misfiring of words there, or, there's nerves, but I'm trying to give you several chances either to give me that or just, answer what was asked of you to begin with, the criterion in which you would use to determine whether or not this was written by, someone in accord with God or God itself or divine person, as opposed to someone just making the shit up. Sorry, Johnny, if you want to get in, I can't understand like what I'm supposed to sink my teeth into here.
No, yeah, I'm going to let Shabazz respond to you, and then I do have some notes on the whole bee thing, because that's not anything magical or like novel that was produced by the Quran, but we can handle that here in a second. I'll let you respond to Mike there, Shabazz.
What is it that you asking me again? You said a whole lot.
Yeah, I just want some type of proposition, statement that could be true or false, right? That's in the Quran, or a set of statements that are very convincing to you, that you think raise the probability that God exists rather than not existing, right? I'm putting that like a low bar. I'm not saying like prove it deductively, just raises the probability that it's more likely than not, right? I don't think that this low bar can be met, and so that's why I'm asking you.
No, I don't know. I don't even know if I can answer that question, because I didn't read the Quran and then start believing in Allah. Like I was already a theist before I ever read the Quran. So there was nothing in there that made me believe in a creator.
Yeah,
I already was a believer.
Sorry, I should have used my language more specifically and said Allah. But yeah, I can see how you have the interpretation. I'm not saying like God in general. I understand you've been a theist because you were a Christian before. But what I don't, yeah, I mean, I don't want to hog up John's time, so I'll just I don't think I'm gonna get the thing that convinced you. Just I get this vague stuff that you read it, like the way that I interpret you before I pass it off, Shabazz. I apologize if this comes off offensive, but the way I interpret it is that you read it, you felt ways about stuff, and now you believe it. But I don't know what the feeling ways about stuff is, right? That's what I'm trying to get there, right?
I mean, you are exactly. No, I mean, you could have. That's. No, I mean you pretty much hit that nail on the head if you just vaguely described something. Yeah, I read it. I found things in there that I thought were convincing, and that's what led me to.
Notice what you just said to me. Notice what you just said to me. If you vaguely put it that way, that's been my problem the whole time, because I'm just repeating back to you how I've interpreted you. This very vague. That's what. If you listen back to the call, I've said the word vague probably 15 times. That's why I phrased it in the way that I did, because that's how I'm interpreting what you're saying. It's very vague. There's nothing. Nothing of substance. If you want to,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, I didn't mean vaguely. I couldn't think of the term I was looking for. I mean, if you want to give something the shortest explanation, I couldn't think of the term that I was looking for there.
Sure.
But what I'm trying to tell y'all, though, is that it's not just, it wasn't any one thing in there. So like we could have the conversation about any one thing that grabbed my attention the whole time and talk about that all day, but it's not just one thing, it's a plethora of things. It's like there's all kinds of stuff that led to my holding on to it after because I didn't even read the Quran before I reverted to Islam. I reverted to Islam on a concept, and I guess to reject Islam if I had the same problems that I had with Christianity.
Well, I hope we get there one day.
But I guess my claim then would be that the things that you think are novel about the Quran or are spectacular about the Quran are not really all that spectacular. So like, just take the bees reference, which I think, if I'm not mistaken,
that's that one thing that you have. That's one thing that you have, though. That's one thing that you have.
Mentioned it. Hold on. Well, So, sorry, Shabazz, you mentioned the bees, and I just want to use this as an example. I'm not saying that that this should represent everything. I'm just saying I have a sneaky suspicion that for any novel thing that you could pull out of the Quran that you want to say is, oh, they wouldn't have known this at the time, it's going to be very poetically and metaphorically like driven and everything like that. So, like, if I'm not mistaken, you're talking about Surah 16, 68, and 69 in particular, and in the Quran it actually says, your Lord inspired the bee, take for yourself homes in the mountains, the trees, and what they raise up, then eat of every fruit and follow the paths of your Lord made smooth. From their bellies comes a drink of different colors in which there is healing for people. So, like, that's the one. Am I correct? That's the one that you're talking about?
I said, yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, so this, for one thing, is a lot of poetic language in here and is not as specific as we would like, the Lord to be in this particular case, because this is a flowery description of where hives are built, bees that collect nectar, and honey as being useful. And all three of these were obvious to any 7th century person at the time. Honey healing,
I don't think you can say what was obvious to
Egyptian medical papyri list honey in more remedies than any other single ingredient. So it was definitely known that honey heals and stuff like that. And then the bellies, that's just a description of the fact that they witnessed bees regurgitating the honey coming from their from inside of them. And then them building hives in mountains, trees, and whatever else people raise. I mean, that's just them looking around and noticing where bees build shit. So none of these things are spectacular that 7th century people, especially in the Middle East, wouldn't have known about. So nothing here is novel. Nothing here would indicate that God gave special knowledge to the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah. Well, one thing is, I don't think anybody can say what would have been obvious to any people, and especially over long periods of time ago.
I'm sorry,
and then also,
Shabazz, this is the big distinction here, and I'm sorry to cut you off so quick after I just stopped, but I literally cited Egyptian records that for the most spectacular part of this, and that's I guess that honey is useful for healing and shit. There are records prior to the 7th century of people knowing that honey is used for healing, for its healing properties and everything. So this isn't just some
that people didn't know that.
No, they literally knew. They literally used it prior to the 7th century CE.
Yeah, man, I'm not saying that people didn't know that that honey had healing capabilities. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the description that it gives of it keeping its nectar, the nectar in its belly. Now you can say that, well, man, those people saw the thing collecting honey from flowers, so it was obvious to them that the nectar was in their belly. But like I said, I'll argue you anytime what was or was not obvious to even a person who's standing right next to you, let alone some people thousands of years ago.
So you're telling me that a 7th century person, even before that, just studying bees, because bees were studied prior to the 7th century, they noticed that bees consume nectar, right? And then they also have to get that out. They regurgitate it out of them. So just them knowing that they have stomachs, they assume that bees also have stomachs. They consume the nectar and then regurgitate it out. This is nothing fantastical. And in fact, we didn't even know about the separate bellies that bees have, one for honey and another one for other stuff. We didn't even know about that until the 17th century. So they definitely did not describe it in the Quranic passage that we read. They just said bellies as if talking about a population of bees in general, not they have multiple bellies. They wouldn't have known that, and they don't describe that.
Well, I didn't say that it said they had separate bellies and kept it in one of them. That's not what I said. I just said how it kept the nectar in its belly at all. But my response to that is, you can say that it's obvious that somebody had a bee and saw that it was collecting honey, so it must have been in its belly and it must have regurgitated. I would say that they didn't bear witness to any such thing, and they could have just as easily thought that the bee was carrying the nectar or whatever it collected in any other way.
Yeah, can you prove that outside of your own? Hold on, sorry. Outside of your own appeal to your own personal incredulity, can you actually prove that? Because this is the second time you've now committed a fallacy of personal incredulity. It's not very interesting.
I can't. I can't prove to you what they thought, just like you can't prove to me what they thought.
Okay, so then why do you think you're justified in saying that? What gives you the right? Why did you have the audacity to think you were justified in saying that? I'm glad. I'm thank you for admitting that you can't.
Why do I think I'm justified in saying what? That they didn't know?
Well, you just told me that you're not justified in it, but you still thought it was true. And what I suspect, because this is now the second. This is now the second. This is sorry. I'm sorry. This is now the second time that you've probably more, but the second that I've been able to detect that you said I can't imagine this thing that way, so it must be the other way, which is just to commit a fallacy of personal incredulity, right?
I can't imagine something being one way, so it must be this way. I never even implied such a thing. I just said that just like you say it was obvious to them, I could say something is not obvious to somebody who's standing next to you. I don't think you can argue what was obvious to somebody outside
You said
of yourself,
no, they didn't do that. You said no, that they did, that you don't think that they did do that, right? I mean, godless, did I not hear him correctly? Right? Did he say no?
Yeah.
That I don't think they did.
Then we asked for the justification, the proof or whatever. Look, proof's like a pretty generic word that can be used in multiple different ways, but everybody understands what we're saying. We ask for proof. We're not saying like, give me a deductive argument. We're saying like some reasons to believe that it's true, some justification. That's the thing we're all interested in here. And you said you couldn't, which by the way, I appreciate. I think that's very honest of you, right? I think you sound like you're, trying to be honest in the cases that you are, right? But you get to these weird spots where I'm like, okay, you're admitting, though, that you don't have the justification, but you think it's true. I just wish you would zoom out and notice your own personal incredulity, because people do this all the time. They're like, I can't imagine it that way, so it couldn't be, or it has to be this other way, right? And when faced with a reason, there's nothing left on the table other than that the reason is fallacious. There's no good reason. There's a fallacious reason.
This is what I'm confused about. This is what I don't understand. You keep saying, I'm saying that I can't imagine it being another way, so it must be this way. I'm trying to understand what you are getting that from, because I'm very open-minded. I'm a very open-minded individual, I think, and I'm not saying that.
Oh, let's walk through the dialectic again. Let's walk through the dialectic again. You couldn't. I'm not saying that you're saying the words I can't imagine, right? The form of like committing that doesn't require you said doesn't require like a specific, like the specific semantics, but this gist of what's being expressed, right? Which is that I don't have I don't have the justification for X. I can't believe that it's X. That's when you responded, no, they didn't do that. And so it's this other thing, right? It's a miracle. It's the God stuff. No, that's literally taking the exact form of I can't imagine it's X, so therefore it's not X or it's Y, right? It's the same form. I can change the words out. I speak a little Hindi. I could try to say it in Hindi. It doesn't matter, right? It's what's going on up here that matters.
What did I say that somebody didn't do?
You said...
Well, no. So if I can clear this up, you said that there's no way you think that they didn't know, like the 7th century authors of the Quran did not know about bees regurgitating honey. But I mean, I just did a quick search and it says Aristotle wrote about it in 350 BCE. Then Pliny the Elder wrote about it in the 1st century CE. And then there are some other Roman manuals in the 4th century CE. So like there's multiple times in the past where they have written about it.
They wrote about bees regurgitating honey.
Yes, Aristotle in 350 BCE.
If they
you don't think someone could observe that? I just don't ever understand the Quranic like prophecies and these miracle things. Like they're always so weird to me. It's like the waters don't mix, and it's like, well, they do, and technically they do. But even if not, you don't think someone could go there and just look at it and go miracle? Because that's how all of these come off to me.
What I was trying to say is that if somebody wrote about bees regurgitating honey, before it was written about it, but then again,
it doesn't matter if it was written about or not. It would be impressive if they were locked in a box their whole fucking life and said right here in the Pacific Ocean and the bees. But they're not like that. They can go walk out their well, I guess not a door, but they can go walk outside, right? Wherever they are, they can go walk outside and fucking observe it. If you like bees that fucking much, you can observe it. You can watch it. You can spend time. There's not some atheist principle in the world preventing you from doing that unless a law gives it to you. What the fuck? I'm sorry, you sound like a nice guy. I should not be yelling towards you, but the stuff going up here is frustrating the hell out of me. I don't understand how you can think like this and think it sounds good, like that you have justification for what you're saying. Maybe we don't play the same game of justification.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, man, that's the perfect segue into what my second question was, and I wanted to ask it a long time ago because I don't know how much time y'all have for just one individual. But
yeah, you want to know why atheists are disrespectful and condescending, and the reason why I'm disrespectful and condescending to you is because I'm giving you several chances. Several chances. You replayed this call. It was very nice at the beginning. I gave you several chances to give me the semantic content, the propositions, the bearer of truth, the thing that's there that's going to make me believe it. I told you it was vague several times. You didn't do that. It's frustrating. So let me give you an analogy, right? Someone that like someone had mentioned this and I thought it was brilliant, right? You go out like outside, you get in your car and someone cuts you off. You can get a little pissed off about it, right? You're gonna pull into wherever you're going. Man, that kind of pissed me off. Whatever. Now imagine you're like a taxi driver or an Uber driver, and you go around getting cut off all day long, just constantly cut off, right? I mean, some people might get numb to it, but a lot of people are just like, God damn it, this happens all the time. People suck. These people suck. And so when you do stuff like what me and John do, me and Dallas, we go on TikTok and talk with like, it could be 20 theists in a day, and then 20 the next day, and then 20 the next day. So it'd be like we could talk to 100 theists in a day, and then we're constantly going over. So if you want to know why some atheists get pissed, is because we feel like we like lend this rope to you, and we're like, come on, come here with us, and you're just like, nah, I don't want it. It's really frustrating to try to go through a dialectic with somebody and ask them for reasons why they believe. And then what they do is just like, oh, well, there's the bees and the stuff. And it's like, bro, there's no way the most important question that could ever be answered to you is this vague. I would be telling somebody a fucking book about it. People can't shut me up already. If I believed in God, I would never shut the fuck up. I would be telling everybody about it. And giving the reasons and going, no, you were rationally committed to this. Sorry. That's why I'm frustrated. I don't think that's generally the case for most atheists. Most atheists will try to work with you.
Yeah, man, dude. If the situation were vice versa, and I were talking to the atheists about their beliefs, because I think the same thing about the atheists that they think about me, but I would still not ever address them like that with a bunch of screaming and hollering, even if I was frustrated, just because I'm an adult, man. I can just be mature and respectful, even if I'm in disagreement.
It'll make a good short that will make more people's eyes get on it, and then they'll honestly start answering these questions. So if I have to yell and scream and put on a little bit of a little show at any point, that's fine, because the content that I'm saying out of my mouth is not something that I don't hold dearly, right? I hold this very dearly to me, right? This is something that I dedicate my time to. I don't do anything in this realm that pays me to do any of that. I like to do this, right? But if I can talk to you in a way and put that in a package and understand how the world around me works, right, and understand that people like to be entertained and stuff like that, I might ham it up a little bit, right? Because that's going to get more eyes on an important conversation, and one that I think is more important right now than ever. So if you want to get mad that I scream and shout, that's fine. I think it's going to be more beneficial that I'm asserting something to you that you should actually take in stride and listen to. Right. And then other people can judge that for themselves. No. I really don't care what people think about me. I care about the content that I say and if they agree with that.
I'm not really upset about it. I just don't think much about it. That's all. Because I think you could accomplish the same thing.
I am upset about it because it affects people around me. So I am upset about it.
Yeah, I can dig it. But man, I was gonna say though, and man, it's a reason, dude, that you have to be more patient because I was in the process of conceding on a point, and then you had your bloop session. What I was about to say is,
I'm not really interested in the meta, so we can just go to John, or you can give the reason because we're just going in a circle. I don't really care about the meta anymore. Right? You wanted to ask some meta question about what is the average atheist. You don't have statistics to show that the average atheist does that. You don't have case studies to show any of that. There's no data hierarchy system of like this case studies, like we should listen to that more than these. You don't have anything like that. You're just doing some generic things. This isn't even a serious point. I gave you more than I should have even given you. Right? So, John, if you want anything you want to say.
I wasn't talking about.
Well, yeah. So sorry, I was gonna say like on the whole idea of like on I guess the general demeanor of atheists, I had to say that I've had very unfortunate encounters with Muslims out there for no good reason. I mean, I run a Facebook page where I've got like over 130,000 people following it, and whenever I do post criticisms of Islam, I get messages that are just like deplorable. Like, I don't know why some people are so quick to like go to, oh, well, I'll fuck your mother after I rip her insides out. Like it's not normal shit that gets thrown like my direction whenever I levy a criticism against, Islam or Muslims. It seems to me like they go all out with the weird fucking insults and stuff. I don't really see that coming from the atheist side all that much. I mean,
you should see my DMs.
Yeah,
how many death threats I've gotten just by talking about someone's religion. You should see it.
Yeah.
It'll really shock you.
And I think that
you really just answered that question for me though, because and I think this is good. This is why it's good for people to talk and have conversations. No telling what you might learn, because well, for starters, I wasn't just talking about atheists in general. I wouldn't put everybody in the same category like that. I was just talking about atheists that I've known and I've dealt with personally. But somehow, as well as I was already familiar with this, it took me hearing you to say, I mean, well, Muslims do the same thing to me, like I've never heard anybody say that before. It took you to say that for me to realize that the answer to that question of why the atheists like that is the same answer that I have to so many questions, because atheists are human beings. That's why it is. That's why some of them are so condescending and disrespectful, because they're human beings, and human beings are, we vary from one end of an extreme to another.
That's fine. I agree.
That question.
Sure, I agree. And then the first one I didn't answer for you is that where atheists get their morals, and we can, we're getting close on time, and I wanted John to be able to speak on this, so I want to hand this to John if John wants to answer this, and because he wasn't here for this first part of the call, so.
If you want to answer that question. Oh, it was the other guy. Yeah, but
I can answer. I can answer either. Yeah, I didn't answer either, but I want to. I'm talking too much. I want John to go first.
Sorry. What was the question again?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I thought that's right.
Where does the individual atheist draw their sense of morality from?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I mean, I draw my sense of morality from secular humanism. I apply that, to my daily life, and I pretty much just, do what's best for my family and my community and the human beings in general. Like I put human health and well-being above, supernatural well-being or supernatural wants and needs, and it's it can be a complex situation of give and take and everything, but I feel like secular humanism provides us with the best model for building a society, and so that's that's what I use to come to moral conclusions.
Yeah, I see. And man, I think, and of course, it's anybody would argue, but man, I'm 43 years old. I've been living in this country my whole life, assuming that we are all in America. And man, having read my book cover to cover and studied it much, man, I guarantee you, if this country was being run by what Quran said, it would be a much better place than it is. Because human secularism.
Oh, so we should oppress women. We have reasons to beat women with like a hair comb, right? Is that your idea?
I guess, or I guess maybe should we deploy
Anissa 34 amongst women in your view? That's what you think's better for them? Get the fuck out of here.
Say that again.
Yeah, before I drop your ass, what I asked you was, do you think that we should legislate something very similar to Anissa 34?
Fucking clowns. You're not going to talk to me like that, then I'm going to answer a question that you asked.
You know what's awesome about this? I can mute the fuck out of you. It's really easy to do that. You like that? You're on mute. So if you want to run like a coward, you can hide. I'll give you a second. I'll unmute you. But yeah, you said something pretty deplorable, right? First off, the irony of you asking where I get my fucking morals from, and then you're like, oh, I think what's the best thing to do is have the thing I believe in that oppresses women and allows reasons to like beat them. And oh yeah, Anissa 34 is like good shit, man. It's real good. That's what I think. You're a clown, and you dropped. You're a clown. Like you asked about this about my morals. Okay, does it really does it matter to you where I even get my morals? If the thing that I'm going to be doing with my moral system is treating your mother better than you treat your own fucking mother, fuck yourself.
Yeah, I feel like there are Islamic theocracies that exist out there, and I think that we can use those as a pretty good model for how a society run by the Quran or by Islam would actually function. I mean, that would include, executing people in the LGBTQ community. It would include imprisoning atheists like us. I mean, it would be pretty bad. I mean, we're facing, a Christian nationalist threat now, and that is of similar extreme that would take similar extreme measures.
Yeah. John, I have a massive apology to give you for I can't shut up now. Maybe I was doing a show with, hey, by the way, I don't know if you saw, but I was doing a show with Seth Andrews earlier. I don't know if you caught that. I'm pretty cool. It's official. I'm pretty cool now. I still got a little bit of time, John. I don't know if you want to, actually, shit, there's one here right for you. Historical Jesus may have existed. This is great. Do you want to take this?
Sure.
Okay, and before we do that, though, I want to just check on a few things and make sure that we don't have some super chats that I need to read. We can't do them. I got you. My mistake. Guys, this is why I'm put in the host seat sometimes and the co-host seat more often. They got to really hold my hand across the street here. And that leads me to the point that I wanted to actually say, the other thing I wanted to say before we move on to this call, which is audio issues on my end today. All me. The clicky mouse, I apologize. I got a new gaming mouse thing. It's got these cool little buttons on the side or whatever. I thought it'd be really good for recording and just programming some stuff here. It's really loud, apparently, not like my other mouse. So I really apologize if I've made a whole bunch of noise. So that's all me, not the crew. Send your hate mail to me, not the crew. In fact, let's get the crew up there if we have time real quick. Get the crew up there. Because these people are not responsible for me making the mistakes that I'm making. There you go. All right. Look at, even God's mad at me in the left corner there. All right, we're going to go to John in New Hampshire. Pronouns he, him. Says that the historical Jesus may have existed. Response to the new chat poll. I am not a mythicist, but I want to sit in the front seat of this conversation. So.
I'm ready for it.
So do I.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, how you doing?
Hey,
John,
Mike,
I'm John too.
Yeah, the Johns. Mythicist John versus non-mythicist
how you doing
John.
there, godless engineer?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
So listen. Good. So I'm an atheist, and I'm a longtime listener to the show. And when I saw the poll question of do you think Jesus existed on the poll, I answered yes, because sure, a guy named Jesus might have existed then. And then I went to
diving deeper into my train of thought. And I said, well, what does Jesus mean? I guess you have to define, the biblical Jesus, or, a guy named Jesus who happened to be a, tailor, whatever. So I just hit yes, and I decided to call the show, and shout out to the screener because she was great. And here I am talking to you guys. So mad respect to both of you.
Yeah. So typically with the historical Jesus, like if you're an atheist, you're talking about the minimal historical Jesus. So that would be just itinerant rabbi that collected a group of guys or just followers that then was, executed by the Romans, and religion popped up around him after the fact. That's generally what atheists mean whenever they talk about a historical Jesus. Is that the one that you're talking about?
I suppose I would have to say yes. The Christian Bible, historical Jesus that we all think about in, the movies and all that stuff. Yeah, Jesus.
It's funny how culty that sounds.
Jesus. Yeah.
It's funny how culty that sounds when it's so vague like that. There's this guy, and he had a bunch of people that followed him, and a whole bunch of people. Yeah, sorry.
All right. So, why do you think that he actually existed?
I think he existed in the same way that all of us exist. His name happened to be Jesus, and he happened to, be a prophet.
I'm sorry, John, but that's not the question I asked.
Now you got to ask yourself, how many? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, the question I asked was, why do you believe he existed? Like, typically, we have evidence for believing in the things that we think are true. Even for historical claims, we're talking about evidence that makes it more likely than not. So I'm asking for, like, what references or what evidence do you have that makes Jesus's existence more likely than not?
Yeah, the only evidence I have is that I asked Alexa about 15 minutes before I got on the phone with you, because I was thinking the same thing. What am I asking here? Why am I on the phone? And all your poll said was, do you think Jesus existed? And my answer was, yeah. A man named Jesus probably existed. And I think the evidence is, Alexa's answer. In the first century, Jesus was the most common, a very popular name.
Okay, yeah, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about random ass Jesus.
You're doing my camp a disservice right now.
We're not talking about random ass Jesuses. Well, just to give you a for instance here, there was Jesus ben Ananias that was in the first century too, that was written about by Josephus, I believe. And the curious thing about him is that he's got a similar progression as Jesus does in Mark's gospel when talking about his passion and TikTok language and his execution. So there were Jesuses, and there were messiahs that were claiming to be messiahs at that time. Like Josephus even records the Egyptian who collected a number of rebels around him and tried to take on the Romans, but he eventually failed and wandered off, a complete failure. So there are instances of these, but I feel like this just proves that we should have some kind of evidence of this minimal historical Jesus walking around and doing things, if he actually did those things. So that's what I'm at. So obviously there's going to be Jesuses walking around. Yeshua is a very divinely connected name to Yahweh. And basically Jewish mothers were naming, their kids Jesus because they thought that they were, the second coming or whatever. And so that was a common name, but that we're not asking for just random ass Jesuses. We're asking about the Jesus that collected a group of people who was eventually executed by the Romans under Pontius Pilate. And, a religion popped up around him after the fact. That's the Jesus that we're talking about.
And that's a lot to try to put into a poll question.
Also a lot for Alexa to respond with. I would agree.
Oh, yeah. So can I ask you one question, if I may? Because I was wondering this about you. And it's a tough one for me. When people ask, especially with the presuppositionist word salad, I find myself struggling to try to think of how I would answer some questions, to keep up with the BS. Have you, either of you ever, run, or I'm sure you probably have. Would you mind telling me about, and telling the audience about a time where you had a pause moment where you went, that kind of put a little, you can't respond quite as quickly, but you want to. And I guess I'll end the call from there. And thank you for your time.
Is this? All right, are you still there, John? Is there? I might have missed a bit of it. Yeah. What specifically towards the Jesus stuff, or just like in general, kind of theist,
I guess
atheist
a little
stuff,
bit of both. Because we're on an atheist talk show, so I suppose. About religion, when you've come up like a street of, let's say an Anthony Magnabosco of the other side comes up to you and just makes you think about something for a second. Has that ever happened to you? And, how has it strengthened your belief system?
Yeah, I mean, John, I don't know if you want to go first. I have a few things, but they're like more like nuanced philosophical positions that I held on to that kind of tie to my spiritual past in a way, maybe. I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, I would just say that, the historicity of Jesus is one thing. It wasn't like a street epistemological thing, but it was more like I was engaged in like Facebook commentary, like a Facebook group, talking about the historical nature of Jesus. And I said, of course, Jesus existed. And they were like, oh, okay, well, what evidence do you have to prove it? And so I'm like, okay, I'll just go and I'll quickly Google it. It's got to be there. And that sent me down a rabbit hole where I eventually became a mythicist, because I just couldn't find any evidence that was convincing to me that there actually was a Jesus that existed. And so, I got challenged on it, and I didn't have a good answer at the time. And it took me a long time to really suss out how I felt about the question.
Yeah. It's kind of weird for me. In terms of theism, I've never heard an argument that just even comes close to convincing for me. Because when I'm not talking with somebody about the philosophy about it, when they're clinging to philosophy for their beliefs, and it's just I had this experience and this kind of stuff, they're those are really bad to me. Sometimes I'm not sure if the person's lying to me about this experience. And I've talked with I bring Aaron up all the time, but I shoot the shit with him about these topics a lot because he was a former Christian. And I told him, I was sometimes I talk to these people, I feel like they're just lying to me about their experience or whatever. And, right. He assured me, no, it's not the case. Look, I came from this background. You genuinely, believe these things, and you genuinely believe that you have these experiences. You just kind of interpret them different later along the road. But when I get into some meat on the table or some premises
what's that book? I'm sorry to interrupt you. But
it's okay.
What's that?
No, it's fine.
What's that book? The Proof of Heaven or whatever. This guy that, this doctor that died and said he saw a picture above the bed while he was being operated. Yada 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 yada.
I'm not sure.
And I try to explain to people that there could be a little bit of lying there. There could be a little bit of a memory that they don't remember. When they were 4-year-old, they visited their grandmother's house and they saw this picture that they always kind of remembered for some other reason, and whatever. It's much more likely that that's the truth than that this person actually died and remembered a death experience.
I have this thing where it's
sometimes. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I have this thing where I'm just kind of on the realm of theism. It's just I've wanted some argument that gets me there, but I've always just detected these crazy kind of metaphysical assumptions that can't get off the ground unless you accept these other things. If you're a Thomist and you lay out this view about change and there's actualization of potential, and you start to realize okay, there's this whole notion about sustaining causes in the universe, and I wouldn't believe in sustaining causes unless I already believed in God. So for me, I see the same kind of trend in. It's an esoteric view called Thomism. It follows Saint Thomas Aquinas, right? And so there's these arguments that are given, and this is an example I'm using where someone will kind of give this argument, and it's easy to kind of just go through the premises, but when you really understand what's going on in a lot of these philosophical arguments, there's like highly contentious, like metaphysical assumptions about the world, right? About like the way things are and certain views that you have to take in order to get off the ground. And so for them, it's like you have to believe that they're like sustaining causes like in the universe. And I don't see any argument to get me to sustaining causes unless I already believed in God, right? It seems just like parasitic on like the conclusion. Like I already would need to believe in God.
I'm with you, brother.
Right. So those are knocked out for me, though I leave them open because I love having those conversations, and I love like, you know, maybe I'm wrong about the assumptions and someone can get me off the ground and we go from there. But for me, it was really like, it was flat earth that was the first time I felt really challenged. And I believe it was in a college class before I had dropped out the first time I went back. Someone asked me about the shape of the earth, and I didn't know, right? This is ultimately what brought me back to school and to get a little degree. Was that I was not motivated when I went to school then at all. I didn't really care to like better myself. I didn't care about knowledge. And this person was like challenging me on, because they're, flat earthers. Just like, oh, I've got to show everybody that I'm a flat earther. And we're getting in this conversation, and I cannot I just couldn't defend my view. Like, I was like, oh my God, maybe I walk away. I'm like, maybe the earth is fucking flat. I have no idea now. I go online, I'm looking, and I'm just like obsessing over this. And then now I start to like learn about like different things, just something as simple as like the Southern Cross and observers from different parts of the earth, and how it would be like geometrically impossible for someone, in these areas to see if the earth was flat, right? And that is the reason why I'm sitting in this chair today, was because of that conversation, because someone put me in a vulnerable spot where I didn't know what I believed. And I was already going through this process of like deconstructing these spiritual beliefs and becoming like more rational. I had flirted with atheism and stuff when I was younger and all that, but I went to this weird hippie stuff, right? And it's almost sucked me back in. And that flat earth, man, that would have been the last thing for me. That's all I would have needed to just never be here and maybe grifting some, astrology book somewhere. So long-winded, but yeah, that was the first time. Going forward, I've been challenged on other things like, nominalism versus Platonism and these kind of things. There's an atheist that gives a very thought-provoking argument against natural selection. He accepts evolution but disagrees with the theory. That's an interesting argument. Gave me a lot of trouble. So there's stuff that have given me trouble, but there's stuff that, like, when I talk to more well-educated people or I read more material, I start to see what the tricks are that are going on. You know what I mean?
What excites your education, Gene? What keeps you going? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it changed me entirely as a person, for sure.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry, I get excited about talking about that because I'm like, yeah, I was almost flat earther. That's just a crazy polar opposite of what I would have become. So,
yeah.
But yeah, thank you for inquiring about that.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm gonna go now. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Yeah. Have a good one. We're getting at the end. I'm gonna go get some food in me as well and close out the show. But I do want to remind people that there are plenty of ways to support us. We got the direct fundraiser that's going on. All the proceeds go directly to the ACA. So please click that donate button if you want to help support us. Remember that you can come. I don't think you'll be in the area, John, August 16th. I know you're in a different part of the country.
Yeah, well, so we were going to try to make it, but we're at Baja Con just before that. And so like we can't make the time to actually make it down to Austin and then
that's
get
right.
back to work and everything.
That's right. I bugged you and your wife about this on TikTok. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember now.
But we definitely got it on our schedule for next year. So we're definitely going to go come by next year.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We did talk about this. It's all flooding back. I'm gonna hold you to that, and then you'll have me in a room and you can really like, why does Jesus exist, motherfucker? You better tell me. But if you want to come out and meet, Forrest, myself, and some other people that are going to be there, the crew. You get to meet Vern. Vern's awesome. meet Greg, everybody. Hopefully Katie and everybody will be there. But yeah, you can go to tiny.cc/backcruise. It'll be August 16th, 2025, and come hang out. I'd be happy to hang out before and after the event, so we can go get some food or whatever. It'd be a blast. So you can also support us on tiny.cc/PatreonAXP, and you can become a patron to help ensure that we produce the content that we do. And last, I want to just throw the crew up for the third time. Let's make it the holy trinity of the crew. Cannot do it without these fine people that are probably just, their ears are probably deaf from my clicking and all sorts of stuff. So yeah. And I'm doing it more and not like realizing it as I'm doing it. I'm so selfish and bad with this, but apologies to everybody. Apologies to the crew. We're out. Peace.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.